Picture this. It's 5:30 in the morning.
You're in the truck.
Yeah, you're sitting in the cab of your truck. The engine is idling, the heater is blasting, and the coffee in your hand is already, lukewarm.
Right.
You haven't even put the truck in drive yet, and your phone is just blowing up.
It's a worst feeling.
It is. Your lead framer is calling in sick. The supplier just emailed to say the window package is delayed by 3 weeks. And a client left a voicemail at midnight asking if you can just quickly move a load-bearing wall they suddenly decided they don't like.
Just quickly move it? Sure.
Right. And you're staring out the windshield, feeling that familiar knot in your stomach, wondering how a business you built with your own 2 hands suddenly feels like a cage.
Yeah.
You're out there running a crew, managing multiple sites, or maybe staring at an intricate spreadsheet trying to figure out how to scale this construction business without entirely losing your mind.
And that feeling right there, that specific overwhelming weight, is exactly why we're here today. We are skipping the polished business theories, the high-level corporate commentary. This deep dive is built from the ground up specifically for you, the Scaling Legends community.
That's right.
We've pulled together a massive stack of the most vital, raw, and impactful research circulating in the industry as of March 3, 2026. We're looking directly at what the most successful people working in the dirt, the concrete, and the steel are consuming right now.
Pure shop talk.
Yeah.
Because if you want to know where the industry is heading, you don't look at textbook projections. You look at what the guys swinging the hammers and signing the checks are listening to on their morning commutes.
Absolutely.
We went through the top trending construction content, and let me tell you, there is a massive, undeniable theme tying all of this together. The entire industry is currently obsessing over one massive transition.
The shift.
Yes. The brutal, necessary shift from the raw chaos of just getting a job done into the peace of predictable, scalable systems.
It's a survival mechanism at this point. I mean, when you look at the shows that are exploding in popularity right now, they aren't talking about how to swing a hammer better. They're talking about how to stop fighting fires.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to tear down exactly how they're doing it. We're going to look at a massive operational trap that is likely bleeding your profit margins dry as we speak.
Oh, the margins.
Right. And we're going to examine a story of pure grit in the asphalt business that proves why your marketing might be entirely wrong for this industry.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to shine a massive spotlight on the messy middle, that valley of death between 5 million and 20 million in revenue that nobody wants to talk about.
Nobody.
And we'll wrap up by looking at how one platform built an audience of 30 million viewers just by pointing a camera at construction sites, and what the harsh legal reality of site documentation actually means for your bank account.
If you are tired of acting as a highly paid, highly stressed firefighter on your own job sites, the insights we're pulling from these sources are the blueprint for your escape route. So, let's get right into the dirt.
Let's do it.
The number one trending source we analyzed is from the Construction Leading Edge show.
Todd Dawald's show.
Yeah, an episode hosted by Todd Dawald, targeting residential and commercial builders. The engagement numbers on this specific episode are off the charts. And when I was reviewing the transcript for this, the central argument hit me like a ton of bricks because it completely flips the script on what we all complain about.
It really forces a very uncomfortable mirror in front of the contractor.
It does.
Because the natural instinct in construction is to blame external factors for our stress. We blame the shrinking labor pool,
The erratic supply chain.
the crazy material price hikes, or clients who just don't understand the process. But the research in this episode points the finger right back at the person holding the clipboard. They identify the true culprit of job site chaos as client-driven process problems.
Which is really a polite way of saying we're letting the inmates run the asylum.
Yeah.
They call it the Burger King philosophy trap in construction. You remember the old jingle, right?
Epa.
Have your way. Have it your way.
Right.
In a retail setting, or if you're selling software or making a cheeseburger, letting the customer have it exactly their way, changing their mind at the last second, sounds like the absolute gold standard of customer service.
Sure.
But the source material makes a brutal case. If you apply that fast food mentality to a complex multi-trade build, you are actively destroying your own business.
Because construction is not a transactional service. It's a highly sequenced, interdependent manufacturing process that just happens to take place outdoors.
That's a great way to put it.
And when a contractor adopts that Burger King philosophy, they are operating out of a place of fear.
Fear of what?
They fear a bad review, they fear the client withholding a payment, they fear losing out on a future referral. So they tell the client, hey, we are so eager to please you that we will accommodate your changes and your visions at any point during the build.
Yeah.
But the analysis here shows that this mindset completely shatters the operational sequence. It is the definition of choosing chaos.
I really want to make this incredibly real for the listener, because I know guys who are living this exact nightmare today.
Let's hear it.
Let's map out a real-world job site scenario. You're running a high-end custom residential build. You've got your GAT chart dialed in. The framing is done. The electrical and plumbing rough-ins have passed inspection. The drywall is hung. The tape and mud are finally cured after a week of running dehumidifiers.
Which is a huge win.
A huge win. And you have a specialized painting crew scheduled to mobilize on Tuesday morning. Everything is humming.
Right.
Then Monday afternoon, the client walks onto the site with their interior designer. They stand in the middle of the kitchen, point at the massive custom island that's already roughed in, and say, you know what? The flow just feels off. We really need this island moved 3 feet to the left. Can we just make that happen, have it our way?
And that is the pivotal moment.
Yes.
If the contractor lacks a rigid, systemized boundary, they will sigh, rub their temples, and say, okay, we'll figure it out.
Because they want to be the good guy.
Exactly. They think they're just providing good service. They think they're just moving a box 3 feet. They completely fail to calculate the invisible compounding explosion of costs that just detonated on their schedule.
Exactly. It's never just moving a box. If you say yes to that client without halting the entire job and issuing a massive reality check, you are dead in the water. Think about the domino effect here.
Oh, it's brutal.
First, you have to call your painter and tell him not to show up Tuesday. He's pissed off because he blocked out his week for you, so he takes another job across town, and now you can't get him back for a month.
Gone.
Then you have to call the concrete cutting guy to come trench the slab to move the plumbing drain and the electrical conduit. That takes 3 days just to get him on site.
Yep.
Your plumber has to come back, your electrician has to come back, You have to patch the trench, wait for the concrete to cure, reframe the island backing, re-drywall, re-mud, and wait for that to dry.
And just like that.
A simple 3-foot move just added 3.5 weeks to your schedule.
And let's look at the financial decay of those 3.5 weeks. You have the direct costs of the subs, sure, but the source material emphasizes the hidden carrying costs.
People always forget those.
They do. You're paying 3 extra weeks of dumpster fees, portable toilet rentals, temporary power, insurance, and interest on the construction loan.
It bleeds you dry.
And more importantly, your superintendent is now spending his days managing a cascading scheduling disaster on this site, which means he isn't prepping the next site. The profit margin you carefully calculated for this entire phase of the build didn't just shrink. It completely evaporated.
Poof.
And ironically, the client will still end up frustrated because the job is now a month late.
That is the ultimate gut punch. You bend over backwards, you destroy your own profit, and the client still gives you a 3-star review because you missed the Thanksgiving deadline.
Right.
So the data from the Leading Edge episode doesn't just point out the problem. It gives a very specific operational fix. The biggest takeaway, the timestamp that contractors need to tattoo on their forearms, is the concept of separating decisions from execution phases.
It sounds academic, but in practice, it is the most aggressive defensive strategy a builder can deploy.
Yeah.
The principle mandates that all variables, every single choice, must be locked in stone before a single tool is lifted on the job site. You cannot be making design, material, or scope decisions while the execution phase is active.
No.
The source material argues that execution should be treated with the ruthless efficiency of a factory assembly line. If Ford is building a truck on the line, they don't stop the conveyor belt halfway down because the buyer suddenly decided they want a sunroof instead of a solid roof.
Right.
That decision happens in the showroom. If it happens on the line, the factory bleeds money.
Right. But here's where I want to push back a little, or at least voice what every guy listening in his truck is thinking right now.
Go for it.
It is really easy to say, act like a factory when you are sitting in a studio. But construction is emotional. Clients are spending their life savings. If I sit across from a high net worth client and tell them, no, I am not moving your kitchen island. You signed the paper. I am terrified they're going to fire me.
Yeah.
Or tie me up in litigation, or completely nuke my reputation in town. Does the research address the very real fear of actually enforcing these boundaries?
It does, and it approaches it not from a place of conflict, but from a place of professional authority. The research indicates that clients actually crave boundaries, even if they push against them initially.
Interesting.
The chaos happens when the contractor acts like a hired hand rather than a project leader. To separate decisions from execution, you don't just say no on the job site, you build a robust pre-construction phase. You sit down with the client before the permits are even pulled and you educate them. You say, our process is different. We do not break ground until every fixture, every tile, every paint color, and every layout is selected and signed off.
Setting the rules of engagement.
Exactly. We do this to protect your budget from spiraling and your timeline from blowing up. You frame the boundary as their ultimate protection.
I love that framing. You are protecting them from their own impulses. And if they do want to change midstream, you don't just say yes, you hit the pause button, you force a formal change order process.
Right.
You say, we can absolutely move the island, but it will cost $18,000 in rework and add 22 days to the schedule. Sign here and provide the check for the $18,000 today, and we will initiate the change.
And what happens?
9 times out of 10, when they see the actual math, they suddenly decide the island looks perfect exactly where it is.
Precisely. It's about shifting your identity from a reactive order taker to a proactive leader. You're demanding respect for the process. And this discussion of identity and respect provides a seamless transition into another vital piece of our research today.
Well, this is a great pivot.
When we talk about how contractors present themselves, how they command respect, and what truly resonates with the industry, we have to look at the second highly trending source data point.
This one is incredible. We dug into the ConExpo Con Gag podcast, hosted by Taylor White.
Good show.
Yeah, if you don't know Taylor, he runs a heavy civil and excavation company, and his audience is the absolute definition of boots on the ground. They recently featured a guest named Ebony Jennings, and the engagement metrics on this episode were staggering, particularly with the recent ConExpo event, driving traffic.
The premise of her story is uniquely compelling. She is the youngest asphalt company owner in the state of Wisconsin and the only woman of color operating in that specific role.
Wow.
But what the data reveals about why this episode exploded is even more important than the demographic milestones. The audience sentiment explicitly shows a massive rejection of polished, corporate-style diversity narratives in favor of raw, gritty authenticity.
Let's talk about the reality of the asphalt and paving trade for a minute, because you cannot understand her story without understanding the environment.
It's tough.
Asphalt is not game. It is arguably one of the most brutal, unforgiving trades in the industry. You are working with a material that is heated to 300 degrees. It smells like sulfur and burning oil.
Yeah.
You are standing on blacktop in the middle of July when the ambient temperature is 100 degrees and the heat radiating off the mat makes it feel like 150.
It's insane.
And it is highly time sensitive. If your paver breaks down or a roller stalls, that mix cools off, hardens, and you just ruin tens of thousands of dollars of material.
It's also intensely capital heavy. You're dealing with massive iron dump trucks, pavers, rollers, skid steers, and historically, it's a deeply entrenched, male-dominated, heavy labor sector.
Very much so.
It's not an environment where you can walk in with a fancy degree and demand respect. In the heavy civil world, respect is exclusively earned through competence, endurance, and the ability to solve catastrophic problems in real time under extreme pressure.
You cannot fake it on a paving crew. The crew knows within 5 minutes if you know what you're talking about. You either know how to shoot a grade, manage the yield of the trucks coming from the plant, and run the screed, or you get eaten alive.
Exactly.
So when Ebony Jennings sits on a podcast and talks about building a paving empire from scratch in Wisconsin, the audience isn't listening to a diversity seminar. They're listening to a battle-hardened peer.
Right?
They're listening to someone who has fought through the exact same supply chain nightmares, the same equipment failures, and the same labor shortages they have, while simultaneously navigating the friction of being the absolute exception in every room she walks into.
This is a critical lesson for the listener regarding how the construction industry evaluates leadership and content. The modern blue-collar audience has a zero-tolerance policy for performative polish.
They see right through it.
They can smell a PR-crafted narrative from a mile away. When Ebony speaks, she doesn't use corporate buzzwords. She talks about the smell of the diesel, the stress of making payroll when a general contractor is 90 days late on a payment, and the raw grit required to stay in the fight.
That's real.
That authenticity bypasses all barriers. It builds immediate, deep trust.
It proves that real respects real, period.
Yeah.
And I want the listener to really internalize this, especially when you are thinking about how you market your own business.
Yeah.
So many guys hit that $3 or $4 million mark, and suddenly they think they need to look like a slick tech startup.
They hire an agency.
Right. They hire a marketing agency that builds them a website full of stock photos of guys in perfectly clean hard hats pointing at pristine blueprints. They write these sterile about us pages filled with words like synergy and optimized solution.
I think that completely alienates their actual target audience. Whether you're trying to recruit a top-tier superintendent or you're trying to win a bid with a major developer, polish often reads as inexperience.
Yeah.
The data suggests you should lean heavily into the reality of the work. Show the mud. Show the complicated trench box setup you had to engineer to fix a collapsed pipe. Talk openly about the challenges your crews overcome. When you sanitize your image, you erase the very evidence of your competence.
Absolutely. Show the scars, because the scars prove you survived the fight. And speaking of the fight, this craving for real, actionable solutions leads us directly into what I'll think is the most important segment of this entire deep dive.
The gaps.
Our research team didn't just look at what the industry is currently talking about. They ran a massive gap analysis. They looked at the search data, the forum questions, the Reddit threads, and they mapped out what the industry is completely failing to talk about. We found the blind spots.
We call these the content gaps, and they represent the largest areas of unsolved pain for the Scaling Legends community. The most glaring gap in the market right now is a revenue band we're calling the messy middle.
The messy middle.
If you look at the landscape of construction media, conferences, and consulting, the advice is heavily polarized. You have a mountain of content dedicated to the guy in the pickup truck who is just starting out, how to get your first LLC, how to buy your first trailer, how to price a bathroom remodel.
Right, the hustle phase.
Exactly. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have high-level enterprise content. You have seminars on global supply chain logistics, advanced corporate tax structuring, and managing 1,000-person workforces for companies doing hundreds of millions in revenue.
Massive scale.
But the contractor who is sitting between $5 million and $20 million in annual revenue, they're stranded on an island. They are completely underserved by the current content ecosystem.
And if you're listening to this right now and you are in that $5 to $20 million band, you know exactly what we mean by messy. Because the pain of this phase is completely unique, and frankly, it is terrifying.
It is.
When you are doing $1 or $2 million a year, you are the ultimate superhero of your business. You know every single client's first name. You know the exact quirk of the transmission in truck number 3. You oversee every nail driven. You personally estimate every job, and you sign every check. You control the universe.
But as you scale past 5 million, that control becomes a physical impossibility. You suddenly have 4, 5, maybe 6 jobs running simultaneously. You're too big to micromanage the field, but you're still too small to afford a massive bloated C-suite of highly paid executives to manage it for you.
Yeah.
You can't drop $200,000 a year on a chief operating officer. So the systems that successfully got you to 5 million, which usually consist of the founder's raw hustle, a legal pad, and a chaotic group text.
That group text is dangerous.
Oh, it's terrible. Those systems actively break and sabotage the business on the way to 20 million.
This ties into a massive psychological gap that nobody is addressing. We talk about operational systems like the Burger King trap, but we don't talk about systemization psychology. We don't talk about the deep internal identity crisis a founder faces when they are forced to put down the tool belt. Let's role play this for a second, because it is the hardest transition a builder will ever make.
Let's do it.
You built your entire reputation, your ego, and your self-worth on being the best craftsman in the room. You are the guy who can solve any physical problem on the site. Now, to scale to 10 million, you have to abandon that identity. You have to hire a superintendent, hand them the plans, and walk away.
And that requires a level of trust and emotional regulation that most founders simply haven't developed yet. The psychological friction is immense.
It is.
Because the reality is, the first time you hand that job over, the superintendent is going to make a mistake. They're going to order the wrong material, or they're going to mismanage a sub, and it's going to cost the company $5,000.
Guaranteed to happen.
The founder's immediate visceral reaction is to scream, "See? Nobody cares like I do. I have to do everything myself. They fire the super, put the tool belt back on, and run back into the fire.
Yes, they retreat to what is comfortable. It is comfortable to swing a hammer. It is deeply uncomfortable to manage a manager. But if you don't let go, you become the ultimate bottleneck. Every decision, every RFI, every material order gets stuck on your desk.
You become the ceiling.
Your company's growth ceiling is permanently capped by how many hours you can physically stay awake without having a heart attack. The messy middle requires you to stop being a carpenter and start being a CEO. We need raw, honest discussions about the fear, the ego check, and the specific conversations founders need to have with their teams to navigate this transition.
Alongside that psychological gap, the research highlights a massive technological void in the messy middle, specifically the lack of concrete, data-driven content regarding AI and automation in construction operations.
Yeah, enough with the theories.
Right. We hear the buzzwords constantly. Everyone says AI is going to revolutionize the job site, but it's all presented in abstract, futuristic terms. No one is sharing the actual boots-on-the-ground data of how technology impacts the daily grind of estimating, scheduling, and back-office management.
Exactly. I don't want to hear a tech bro talk about the theoretical future of robotics. I want a $10 million general contractor to get on a microphone and say, look, my estimating team was drowning. We were spending 4 days doing manual takeoffs with highlighters and scales.
The old school way.
Yeah. We implemented this specific AI tool that reads the blueprints and automatically counts every door, every window, and every linear foot of baseboard. It reduced our estimating time by exactly 42%.
See, that's real.
That allowed us to bid on 3 extra jobs a month, and we won one of them, which added $800,000 to our top line. That is the hard math the messy middle needs.
They need actionable technological integration because the back office and the messy middle is often where the most profit is lost through sheer administrative inefficiency. The scheduling, the endless phone calls to subs to confirm arrival times, the tracking of material invoices against purchase orders, it's a crushing administrative burden.
It is an absolute nightmare. And speaking of eliminating that admin nightmare, this deep dive is brought to you by Smart Business Automator. They handle the rescheduling chaos, the follow-up to billing tracking automatically. Check them out at smartbusinessautomator.com.
And that kind of automation leads directly to another gap our team identified: the lack of tech stack teardowns.
I love this one.
We constantly hear advertisements for new software platforms, but there is zero content going inside the operations to show what a highly profitable $50 million general contractor actually uses on a daily basis, and more importantly, how those systems talk to each other.
Well, the integration piece is the holy grail. Because right now, the bane of the trades is triple entry.
Triple entry is a killer.
If your field superintendent types a daily log and a time card into an app on his phone, and then your office manager has to print that out, manually retype the hours into your payroll software, and then manually type the material costs into QuickBooks, you do not have a tech stack. You have a digital typewriter. The friction of moving data between silos is where mistakes happen and money disappears. We need content that shows the exact API integrations. How does Procore talk to QuickBooks? How does the AI estimator feed directly into the procurement schedule?
Furthermore, the gap analysis revealed a significant blind spot regarding subcontractor-specific scaling. The data notes that roughly 90% of all business content in the construction space is geared toward general contractors.
That's true.
It assumes the listener is managing the overarching project. But specialty trades, the massive commercial HVAC companies, the large-scale concrete outfits, the heavy electrical contractors, they face an entirely different set of physics when it comes to business.
AGC is managing the symphony, but the specialty trade is actually playing the instrument.
Perfect analogy.
If you are a 50-man plumbing contractor, your problems are completely different than the GC's problems. You are dealing with getting squeezed on the schedule because the framer was late, but the GC is still holding you to your original finish date.
Yep.
You are fighting for access to the work area, maneuvering scissor lifts around drywallers who aren't supposed to be there yet. You are managing highly specialized, incredibly expensive labor, and your cash flow cycle is terrifying, because you have to front massive material costs before you can even submit a pay app. We need content tailored to the specific battles of the subcontractor.
The final two gaps identified in the research are perhaps the most critical for the long-term health of the industry. First is the lack of guidance on exit planning before exit, specifically in the context of private equity.
Huge trend right now.
Massive. We're seeing a massive influx of PE money buying up HVAC, plumbing, and roofing companies. But founders in the messy middle need guidance on how to build enterprise value systematically today, rather than just subscribing to a scale forever mentality with no exit strategy.
Right.
And secondly, there is a glaring, dangerous absence of content focusing on founder mental health and burnout.
It is the silent epidemic in the trades.
Yeah.
We use words like grit and resilience to mask what is actually happening.
We really do.
The pressure of running a mid-market construction company is unfathomable to the general public. You are carrying millions of dollars in liability on your shoulders. You are personally guaranteeing heavy equipment loans. You know that if you don't secure the next bid, 40 families might not be able to pay their mortgages next month.
The weight of that is just...
It's immense. And the culture dictates that you just absorb it, put your boots on, drink another energy drink, and project total bulletproof confidence to your crews.
But that stoicism has a breaking point. We need to normalize discussions about the psychological toll of this industry. We need founders to understand that experiencing burnout, anxiety, or decision fatigue does not make them weak leaders. It makes them human beings operating under extreme load.
Absolutely.
Because if the leader's mental health collapses, the entire infrastructure of the messy middle collapses with them.
That is a profound point, and it demands its own dedicated focus. But to transition from the internal operations and the mental weight of the back office, we need to look at the stark external reality of field execution. What happens when the systems fail? What happens when the job goes sideways? Our research brings us to the Construction Leaders Podcast, hosted by the Construction Management Association of America, or CMAA. The episode is titled Documenting Delays: What Construction Managers Need to Know.
This perfectly bridges the gap between the need for rigorous systems and the chaotic reality of the job site. We are moving into the realm of legal defense and contract administration.
Which nobody likes talking about.
No one likes it until they need it. The core topic is the absolute, non-negotiable, critical nature of contemporaneous field-level documentation. We're talking about daily reports, meeting minutes, timestamp photos, and RFI logs. It sounds incredibly dry, but the source material references a recent Arcadis report that should send a chill down the spine of every contractor listening.
Let's talk about that Arcadis report. It shows that dispute values, the actual dollar amounts being fought over in mediation, arbitration, and litigation, are skyrocketing industry-wide.
Skyrocketing.
Projects are getting more complex, schedules are getting tighter, and when the music stops and the money runs out, people are lawyering up faster than ever before. If you are operating a $10 million company and your field supers are treating daily logs as an optional chore, you are walking blindfolded through a legal minefield.
The audience engagement on this specific podcast episode reveals a deep hunger for precise technical legal knowledge. The source material draws a very sharp, critical distinction that is often completely misunderstood on the job site.
Lay it out for us.
Every construction manager and owner must understand the legal and contractual difference between a delay, a disruption, and a productivity loss. These are not interchangeable terms, and using them incorrectly in a dispute can cost you your entire claim.
I guarantee guys use these terms interchangeably every single day. The super calls the office and says, hey, we got delayed today because the GC staged a massive lumber drop right in the middle of our workspace.
Exactly. Colloquially, that makes sense. But legally, they require entirely different burdens of proof. A delay typically refers to a situation that explicitly extends the critical path of the project schedule, meaning the final contractual completion date of the entire project is pushed back.
Okay.
A disruption, however, is an interruption to the contractor's anticipated working methods or sequence. It might not necessarily extend the final completion date of the project, but it makes the specific work much more difficult, inefficient, and expensive to execute.
Let's build a mega hypothetical scenario to really hammer this home. Let's say you are a commercial electrical contractor roughing in a massive multi-story office building. Your crew of 10 guys shows up on the third floor, fully mobilized, tools out, ready to pull wire.
Ready to go.
But when you get there, you find out the framing failed inspection yesterday, and the GC didn't tell you. You can't work on the third floor. So your foreman has to scramble, he has to pack up all the gear, move the crew down to the first floor, which wasn't fully prepped yet, try to find busy work, and then move everyone back up to the third floor 3 days later when the framing is finally fixed.
That is the perfect example. Now, your electrical crew might still hustle, work overtime, and finish your scope of work by the original contract date. So the overall project is not delayed. There is no extension of time required.
Right.
However, your efficiency was completely destroyed. Instead of a smooth, linear progression, your crew engaged in stop-and-go work. They spent hours moving materials needlessly. They lost the rhythm of the installation. That is a disruption.
Right. And that disruption costs hard cash in the form of wasted labor hours.
Right.
Which leads to the third term, productivity loss.
Precisely. Productivity loss is the financial calculation of that inefficiency. It is the dollar amount you lost because the GC failed to manage the site properly. And here is the terrifying reality the CMAA podcast emphasizes. Productivity loss is the absolute hardest thing to prove in a legal dispute or a claim.
Why is that?
You cannot just walk into arbitration, look at the judge or the mediator and say, the GC was disorganized, so my guys worked slower and we lost $50,000. Pay me.
They will laugh you out of the room.
They will, because without proof, it's just a contractor complaining about the realities of construction. To win a productivity loss claim, you need bulletproof, contemporaneous documentation.
Contemporaneous meaning from that exact moment.
Yes, you need daily reports from that exact week detailing precisely how many electrical workers were on site. You need the foreman's log stating explicitly, arrived on third floor, framing failed inspection, forced to demobilize and move to floor 1, losing 4 man-hours in transition. You need the meeting minutes proving you notified the GC of the disruption in real time. You need the emails. If you try to recreate these logs 3 months later from memory when you realize your margin is gone, the opposing counsel will tear your claim to shreds.
The proof is in the paperwork. It is the cold, hard, legal reality of the trades. If it isn't written in the daily log of the day it happened, it did not happen, period. And this seamlessly connects to another kind of proof that our gap analysis identified as absolutely crucial, and frankly, it is where the industry is heading.
Visual proof.
We need to talk about visual proof. Our research shifted gears to look at the world's best construction podcast, which is produced by B1M.
This is a fascinating pivot. The episode we analyzed, number 178, covers massive, mind-bending global infrastructure projects. They dissect the engineering behind Vietnam's new megastadium, the multi-billion-dollar overhaul of London's Liverpool Street Station, and Dubai's incredible orb-top skyscraper.
Sounds amazing.
The hook of the show is providing extreme engineering deep dives in a casual, conversational format.
But the audience data revealed a massive problem, didn't it?
It did. The audience sentiment data reveals a very specific structural frustration. Listeners frequently complain that it's incredibly tough to immerse themselves fully in the content. Why? Because the hosts are trying to verbally describe massive, complex, three-dimensional engineering feats that the listener cannot actually see.
It's like trying to describe the Mona Lisa over a rotary phone. You can talk about the intricate steel truss tension system of a stadium roof in Vietnam all day long, but if I can't see the connection points, I'm lost.
Exactly.
Construction is inherently visual.
Yeah.
We don't build theories, we build physical, tangible things in a three-dimensional world.
This highlights what we call the visual gap in construction communication. Whether it's a media platform trying to showcase an engineering marvel or a construction manager needing rigorous proof to win a legal dispute, tangible visual evidence matters immensely in this industry. Words alone often fall completely short when communicating a complex physical reality.
Let's tie this right back to the legal documentation we were just talking about. What does this visual gap mean for the listener running a site today? It means that written daily logs are great, but visual daily logs are bulletproof.
Bulletproof.
Are your field supers taking dozens of timestamp photos every single day and attaching them to the digital logs? When that electrical crew got blocked by the framing, did the foreman snap a picture of the rejected framing with a timestamp, proving they couldn't work?
That picture saves the claim.
Are you using drone footage to show an owner the massive subsurface rock formation you hit, to visually prove exactly why a $50,000 change order is necessary? In construction, visual proof eliminates ambiguity. It stops arguments before they start. It protects your margins in a dispute, and it sells your ultimate competence to a client.
That absolute necessity for high-level visual storytelling perfectly bridges into our final and perhaps most inspiring piece of analytical research today. We're looking at the Construction Brothers podcast, hosted by sixth-generation builders Eddie and Tyler Campbell.
Great guys.
In this episode, they brought on Fred Mills, who is the founder and face of the B1M, to talk about the future of construction media and perception.
This is where I just completely geek out over the numbers. Because if you want to know what the ceiling is for construction branding, look at Fred Mills. He built a platform that became the world's largest construction video channel. We are talking about 30 million monthly viewers.
It's unbelievable.
Let that sink in. 30 million people tuning in to watch videos about concrete, steel, and logistics. That is a staggering audience size for an industry that historically has never been viewed as glamorous by the mainstream public.
It forces us to ask, how did he do it? The timestamps from the source material break down the specific content strategy that allows for that kind of massive scale. The core of B1M's strategy is making construction cinematic.
Cinematic, yeah.
For decades, the narrative around the trades was somewhat minimized. It was viewed as purely blue-collar labor. B1M revolutionized that perception by treating construction with the same cinematic reverence, the same high-stakes narrative tension that mainstream media usually reserves for Silicon Valley tech innovations or NASA space exploration. They elevated the perception of the builder from a laborer to a visionary problem solver.
They treat these projects like epic sagas. They don't just say, here is how they poured the concrete. They frame it as a battle. They make gravity the villain. They make the weather the villain. They make the sheer physics of a skyscraper fighting the wind the ultimate antagonist, and the builder is the hero who conquers it.
It's brilliant storytelling.
And to reach 30 million people, the research highlights how they mastered platform diversification. They don't just rely on one format, they blend these massive, highly produced, 45-minute deep dive documentaries with rapid 8-minute episode bites.
Which is a highly sophisticated direct response to how modern audiences consume information. The loyal, die-hard engineering followers appreciate the intense, technical depth of a 45-minute breakdown. They want to know the exact tensile strength of the rebar.
Oh yeah, they want the math.
But the 8-minute bites format acknowledges the reality of scattered attention spans. It captures the casual viewer scrolling during a commute, or the contractor who only has a few minutes while sitting in their truck eating lunch between site visits. It allows the story to scale across multiple demographics.
So let's bring this down to earth. What does a 30 million viewer media empire in London mean for a $10 million independent contractor in Ohio? What does it mean for you, the listener, trying to build a brand in your local market?
It means everything.
It proves that the general public, including your potential high net worth clients, are deeply, inherently fascinated by how things are built. You don't need a massive Hollywood budget to leverage this. You don't need a RAID camera. You need a smartphone, and you need to understand the narrative.
Show the prop.
Show the muddy trench, the collapsed pipe, the structural nightmare, then show your team solving it. Document your own messy middle. If you can capture just a fraction of that cinematic storytelling, you will completely dominate your local competitors who are still running boring, polished stock photos.
It represents the ultimate synthesis of everything we've discussed today. If you can pair the high-level visual storytelling demonstrated by B1M with the gritty, boots-on-the-ground authenticity of an Ebony Jennings, and back it all up with the ruthless, systemized efficiency required to conquer the Burger King trap and survive the messy middle, you become an unstoppable force in your market.
That is the ultimate formula. You attract the attention and build the trust with the epic storytelling of the build, but you execute the work and protect your profit margins with the rigorous systems we outlined at the top of the show.
Exactly. When we pull all of these disparate sources together, from the psychology of setting client boundaries to the power of unpolished authenticity to the unyielding legal demands of site documentation and the massive scale of global media, the profile of the modern, successful contractor becomes crystal clear.
They aren't just swinging a hammer.
No, they are not merely someone who knows how to build a physical structure. They are a system builder. They are a clear, authoritative communicator who is unafraid to enforce boundaries. And perhaps most importantly, they are someone who embraces the extreme discomfort of stepping out of the day-to-day execution phase in order to make the high-level strategic decisions required to actually scale a business.
They don't just wear the tool belt, they build the machine that holds the tool belts. That is how you win. That is how you escape the chaos. So we're going to leave you with a final provocative challenge based on everything we unpacked today. Somehow this week, sit down in your truck, turn off the radio, and take a brutally honest look at your own operations.
Find your leak.
Where exactly are you falling into that Burger King trap? Where are you bending your own rules, terrified of a bad review, letting a client dictate your process, and secretly destroying your margins in the process? Identify it and draw the boundary.
And look at your back office.
Yes, look straight into the chaos of your messy middle. Identify just one single piece of administrative work, one repetitive scheduling task, one data entry bottleneck that you can automate or systemize tomorrow. Just one. Stop running a chaotic job, take control of the process, and start scaling a legendary business.
The tools, the strategies, and the hard data are all sitting right in front of you. The choice between continuing the chaos and building the systems is entirely yours.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now get out there and build something great.